Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 24 quarterback rankings for Week 11. You ready? Those Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
Those Fantasy Goodfellas. All right, before we get started, let me remind you these are not our rankings. We're reacting to a consensus of different sports writers and their picks. So we're just going to show you some stats and some trends based upon their predictions. And we hope that this will help you with your own lineups. All right, before we get started, let me remind you the teams on buys this week are the Atlanta Falcons, the Indianapolis Colts, the New England Patriots, and the New Orleans Saints. All right, let's get started. At number 1, you have Patrick Mahomes. This is the Philadelphia Eagles. This will be an interesting week matchup because you got Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks, going against Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best defenses. And so that will be interesting to see who does better. At number 2, Josh Allen versus the New York Jets. Josh Allen is having one of those weird seasons where he does really well, but then he just does really bad. And he just can't seem to string them together week after week. And he's having a lot of picks. But if you look at, he's ranked, he's been in the top 10 a lot of weeks, been in the top 20 every week. But you just expect more from Josh Allen. At number 3, Jalen Hurts at the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Hurts was on bye this past week, but he has 3 TDs in Week 9 with about 240 total yards. It'll be interesting to see where they match up as well. Number 4, Lamar Jackson versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, Lamar Jackson has one of those up and down type games. He never gives you a lot of passing yards, but he gets into the end zone, and I think that's what makes him an interesting pick week after week. At number 5, Dak Prescott at the Carolina Panthers. Prescott can light it up. And you saw this in Week 10. He had 5 TDs. And so that's the Dak Prescott that you want. And if you have Dak Prescott, he definitely helped you in Week 10. Number 6, Justin Herbert at the Green Bay Packers. Justin Herbert did really well. He was the second best quarterback in Week 10. He did that with 4 passing TDs and 323 passing yards. In Week 7, C.J. Stroud versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, what can you say about Stroud? He's one of the best rookies and overall just one of the best quarterbacks lately. So I like what C.J. Stroud's doing. But going against these other top-tier quarterbacks, you need more than 2 TDs in a week. But you got to be loving it. At number 8, Joe Burrow at the Baltimore Ravens. Burrow, after signing that big contract, hasn't lived up to it. But he did 347 passing yards, 2 passing TDs. And that was only good for number 7. At number 9, you got Kyler Murray at the Houston Texans. Now, what did Kyler Murray do? Well, he had 33 rushing yards and a rushing TD. We highlight that because that was really, in my opinion, what really separated him this week and coming back. He's got his legs back. At number 10, you got Brock Purdy versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Purdy has a lot of different weapons. He had 3 passing TDs, 296 passing yards. He did that on 26 attempts. So he's... almost 300 passing yards, and you have 26 attempts, 19 completions. That's pretty good. At number about 15 yards per catch. At number 11, Justin Fields at the Detroit Lions. Now, this is where Justin Fields comes back, and he's already been ranked so high. So now you're going against Detroit that can light it up. He's going to have to play catch-up, so he's going to have to throw the ball more than run it. At 12, Jared Goff versus the Chicago Bears. Now, this is where Justin Fields is listed higher in the rankings than Jared Goff's been because Jared Goff is playing better, but because Justin Fields can run, I think that's where you got to kind of question some of these rankings, I would not put Justin Fields ahead of Jared Goff. At 13, Tua Tagovailoa versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now you have Justin Fields ahead of Tua, and Tua's been lighting it up. So this is where I just don't get some of these rankings myself. They don't make sense, but I guess the last game, Tua didn't have a good game, so maybe they're depending on that Week 9's ranking stats to show. At number 14, Sam Howell versus the New York Giants. Now, Sam Howell is balling, in my opinion. 3 passing TDs, 312. He was the 4th-ranked quarterback. To see him so low, it's a little shocking. I'd like to see him about 9 or 10. At 15, Joshua Dobbs at the Denver Broncos. Now, 2 things about this. I expect Joshua Dobbs to hit a wall. He hasn't. So he's playing really well after being traded and not really knowing that offense hasn't hit the wall. And that Denver defense has been playing better ever since being blown out by the Dolphins. So ever since the Dolphins blowout, they've been picking it up. So this will be an interesting matchup for sure. At 16, Trevor Lawrence versus the Tennessee Titans. Trevor Lawrence had 185 passing yards. I don't know what's going on with that team. They added weapons like Calvin Ridley. ETN's playing really well. I just don't understand why they can't improve. Now, if you're in a 16-team league, this is your top 16. Anything outside of that is you're looking at backups. At number 17, Geno Smith at the Los Angeles Rams. He had one of his better games of the season, which is he can ball. He's got 4 games over 300 yards. He's got 4 games with multiple TDs. So Geno Smith's picking it up. I like to see him ahead. And if you have him, I would start him depending on who your starter is. At number 18, Baker Mayfield at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I've been saying this all season. Baker's not really losing you games, but he's not really winning you games. So if you look at his overall rankings, he's been ranked 11, 10, 8 and 10 in the past 4 weeks, which is decent. And again, I think that's where he's going to end up, right around that 10, 11 this coming week. So at number 19, Russell Wilson versus the Minnesota Vikings. Russell Wilson had an off game, but he was ranked 11th. And that's kind of shocking. So at number 20, Jordan Love versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Jordan Love really isn't doing much, but here you go. Must have been a down week because he had 289 passing yards and 2 passing TDs, and you're ranked 12th. That's interesting. At 21, you got Matthew Stafford versus the Seattle Seahawks. I think this is going to be a shootout. It's going to need to be a shootout. So I like to see how that one plays out. At 22, Deshaun Watson versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got Chubb coming back. Maybe that helps you out because now you're stacked on running backs. So that might play, but they just don't have enough wide receivers, in my opinion. At 23, you got Will Levis at the Jacksonville Jaguars. He did 199 passing yards. But look at this attempts. 39 attempts, and you only have 109 passing yards and 0 passing TDs. That's a bummer. At 24, you got Bryce Young versus the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Bryce Young isn't going to light it up. He's not really doing too much, but it has 185 passing yards. He was the 22nd ranked. I see him being right around there next week as well. So that is your top 24 quarterback rankings for week 11. And again, I don't go into these rankings because you have your quarterbacks. Some teams are on buys, so you're going to have to stick with your players that you got. And so these rankings really don't matter, right? You're going to play who you want anyways. But that is the top 24 quarterback rankings for week 11. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck this week. Those Fantasy Goodfellas.